For more on food insecurity, let's bring in Lori Nikkel. She's the CEO of Second Harvest. It's Canada's largest food rescue organization. And Lori, I know that Toronto went into a 4-week lockdown just a few days ago, and in Canada you guys marked Thanksgiving in October, so ahead of us here in the US. How has COVID-19 impacted your work, not just during the holidays, but in general, in terms of demand, in terms of things like supply chains?
Well, nice to meet you, and it's impacted us incredibly. So we are a food rescue charity, and basically what that means is we rescue food that was going to go into landfill and make sure it gets to people. Globally, we produce more than enough food to feed everybody. There's absolutely no need for anybody to be hungry because food security is really about income. So as a result of COVID, our food systems absolutely changed. We created the Food Rescue Canadian Alliance immediately so we could collaborate with charities, the food industry, commodity groups, Indigenous communities, and the federal government to come up with a plan that would best support Canadians during this time. People had lost their jobs, they were laid off. We knew that the incomes were less than they were before. The federal government put in a beautiful system called SERVE, so every Canadian was accessing money had they lost their job. But there was still a whole lot of need. And the truth is there was a whole lot of food because hospitality closed and food service closed. And so that food had to go somewhere. And so we pivoted that food to make sure it would get to people.
You mentioned some of the public support there. Has there been an increase in that sort of support and private sector as well?
Absolutely. I mean, private sector, when it's possible, our private sector is being hurt pretty bad right now. Not everybody, more local businesses, but the public sector, our federal government, our provincial governments have really been supporting people with the needs that they have. So whether that's housing or food or whatever that may be, the federal government has really stepped up. There's been a whole lot of funding attached to COVID to make sure, and there's also been a way of managing it so that people could access, like I said before, more money on their employment insurance or just getting a check. So there's absolutely been in Canada, a real step up to the plate to make sure that we could get what we needed during this crisis.
We're seeing some of these food bank lines in the US, and I recall the images from a few days ago, the celebrations when the Dow Jones hit 30,000 points here in the US. Such a disparity between what's happening here. As a society, are there things that we can still do differently so this doesn't happen again?
Oh my goodness. I mean, yes, for sure. I think the reality is what COVID did for everybody is it really shone a light on the disparity in Canada, in the States, and many places that we consider first world, because we are first world. But the disparity in income levels is significant, right? So low income just becomes lower income. And if you have money, you just keep making more money. And so there's this real gap that we never used to have. We don't have a middle class anymore. And so there absolutely has to be some legislative ways, some policy controls in place so that we can bridge this gap in the future. Like, I am a charity, I run a charity. Charities should not exist. Charities are here because there's obviously some problem. So we're here as long as we need to be to fix this problem of there's more than enough food to feed everybody. Let's make sure they get it and keep it out of landfill. But ultimately, yeah, government has a huge role to play to make sure that this stops.